Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's DMRC meeting. Are there entries or substitutions?
Yes, convener, an apology from Councillor Fairweather.
Okay, thank you. And any declarations of interest or of transparency?
I have transparency on the first item, but I'll stay in the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. What's the nature of your declaration, Councillor Dmrc?
I know the applicant, but obviously I don't have any. I haven't had any correspondence on this issue.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And Councillor Brace?
Yes, thanks, convener. Whilst in item 4, which is report 8523, whilst I don't know the applicants, I do know their families reasonably well, but not to an extent that a member of the public might doubt my ability to make an unbiased decision required. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations? Okay, right, thank you for that. We'll now move on to item 3, which is the land between Condor Drive and Kepty Road, Arbroath. And over to you, Mr. McGuinness, for the planning presentation.
Thanks, convener. The case is in front of me. The one that convener has just read out, which is planning permission in principle for erection of 2 dwelling houses at land between Condor Drive and Kepty Road, Arbroath. The next report is on the planning permission for erection of a dwelling house at land 40 metres north of Loomington Steading House, Brattinch and Brecon, and planning permission for erection of a dwelling house in Sillery Works at land 225 metres northeast of Hunter's Cabin in Justin Hall, Forfar. My following statement is applicable to all of these applications and should be noted as so for the minute, and to save me repeating it 3 separate times. As members will recall, there was a report on National Planning Framework 4 submitted to Development Standards Committee on the 14th of February 2023. That report informed the committee of the changes NPF4 will bring about as part of the development plan and its implications in that regard. However, in the context of DMRC and as planning advisor to this committee, the applications in front of you will be required to be assessed against NPF4 before you make a decision on them. This is because NPF4 now forms part of the development plan alongside the 2016 local development plan, and therefore falls within the requirements of section 25 and 37.2 of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act 1997 as amended. As members are aware, you are required to determine the cases in line with the development of the plan at the time the planning decision is made. Therefore, it is my advice to committee that you cannot proceed to properly determine these cases without further procedure, i.e. until such times as further written representations on NPF4 in relation to these cases are provided by the Development Management section of the Planning Service. Proceeding to determine these cases without an assessment against NPF4 would result in an invalid decisions and could lead to judicial reviews if the cases are determined without this assessment. This is also the advice of the Chief Planner of Angus Council, and I understand the legal advisor to the committee. Once the view of development management on the merits of these cases assessed against NPF4 is known, I would be in a position to present the full case to members as I normally do in the manner of the committee's choosing, which I would recommend should be at a later date of DMRC. Thanks, convener.
Okay, thank you. So just to recap what you're saying, we need to take reference to NPF4 and we need to get a further statement from the Development Planning Service. And I think the last time we discussed this, we agreed that with the staffing issues that a 28-day period was a reasonable period for that information. Is your advice that we should just delay any further discussion until we have had this report from Development Planning? Is that right?
I will say my piece and I'll let the legal advisor say her piece if Tina needs to say anything. Yes, I would. The 28 days is what we have decided that would be an appropriate amount of time for each view of development management on NPF4. Without this advice and without looking at members would have to make their own decisions about the policies to be used in NPF4 and any conflicts between NPF4 and the current development plan. And if you do attach conflicts, it's the newer plan that prevails, so the decision would have to be made in NPF4. it is the advice, as I've said in there, would be for members to decide whether they wish to do that or not. But my strong advice, I have said, that should be to request in each case for applications to DMRC to decide that don't have a view on National Planning Framework 4 to seek one, to help members out to know the full case, the full parameters and the full implications before going any further. That would be my advice. I'm sure the legal advisor shares that.
Okay, do you want to say anything there, Tina?
Yes, good morning, members. I agree with Mr McGuinness completely. As he said, an assessment of NPF4 is essential in relation to matters. And on that basis, given where we are with regard to when NPF4 came into being, my sensible advice would be until such times as members can look at the case as a whole, including the planning advisor's presentation, which obviously you will not have today. My advice is that members can't properly determine if they cannot make a decision in terms of Regulation 12 regarding further procedure or not, until such time as they have all information. And also, with regard to further procedure, what further procedure you may well determine at that time. So I agree wholeheartedly with Mr McGuinness and would suggest that matters are continued for further information only.
Okay, elected members, we've had pretty clear advice from both advisors. So the only question that sort of crosses my mind at the moment is whether, in terms of expediting the whole process, whether we should consider a site visit in any case. Would that be a sensible course to try and reduce the time this is going to take? Because we're already going to add 28 days on. If we then after that 28 days we need to have a site visit, then it's potentially another 2 or 3 weeks. It truncates the process. I've got a number of hands up here, so perhaps Ms Magson, do you want to give us your thoughts on that first?
Yes, it's similar to what I've already said, convener. Again, my view is the sensible position to take is that until you have all of the case before you, you can't really make a judgment as to whether or not, in terms of Regulation 12, any further procedure is required beyond the written submissions of NPF 4. So that would be my sensible view in terms of the regulations and the position we find ourselves in now.
Okay, right. Councillor.
Well, thanks, convener. I was going to agree with you, but having heard Ms Magson's advice, I suppose we're just going to have to wait. I think it's extremely unfortunate because I'm going to require a site visit to one of the applications, and it's really NP4 I'm still going to require that site visit regardless of NP4, and NP4 doesn't make any difference to it. But if this is what we're advised to do, I suppose are we better just to go with that then?
Okay, and Councillor Durno.
I wouldn't need a site visit for the Arbroath one because it's not that far from my house, really, walking distance. But I would probably for the other applications that are there. But should all the DMRC meetings be actually stopped until the MP? It's MP4, isn't it? Or NP4, or NP4 and MP4 until these regulations have come into play.
Well, gradually that's what's going to happen because
Yeah.
As the planning service process things, then they will take cognizance of NPF4, because you've got to remember the decision for these three today were taken before NPF4 was Robert's Parliament. So gradually as we move forward, then we won't have this issue, but we're in this intermediary position where you have decisions of the planning authority were taken before whatever it was, the 13th of February 2023, and they didn't take cognizance of NPF4. So we're in this intermediary period, which is a bit unsatisfactory, but I don't think there's any way of avoiding it. So we're just going to have to put up with that. Mr McGuinness, do you want to add something?
It was just to add to members' deliberations that normally members are aware that I do a full presentation, which includes site photos. So I go and see the site beforehand, and I do take copious amounts of photographs to help members with that, without seeing that in the context as well, and in relation to the advice that development management may give. Then my advice to you would be, even though it's really disappointing and I understand, you know, the needs to expedite cases, however, there is nothing that we can do about this. We have a procedure in front of us and we need to follow that to the letter, because if we don't, then there's issues of legality that could be challenged, that we haven't followed a proper procedure by determining the case with the full information in front of it, hearing from me, seeing the photographs, understanding the context, and then considering if there is any other further procedure, as the legal advisor has stated, that you may require from determination of that full case. At this point in time, you do not have the full case in front of you. You have not had the benefit of my presentation. Therefore, it would be my advice that the legal advisor's advice, there's too much advice in this and too much NPF4 today, should stand. That would be my advice to committee as well, if that helps, convener.
Yeah, that is helpful. Councillor Dornan?
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to come in and say that I agree that this is how we have to proceed, really in this circumstance, and just as think it must be incredibly frustrating for the applicants and people who are waiting to hear at the minute. Also, just there's quite a lot of activity within this committee and group, and that obviously planning officers are having to deal with current applications and past ones as well, and re-looking at that, which I imagine is putting a lot of demand on the team. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of air that really, but I don't think we've got any other option in this instance of how we move forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Brays.
Yes, just to concur entirely with Councillor Dornan, we don't have much. Well, we don't have any choice here, so.
Okay.
We have it.
Yeah, we're kind of we've got pretty clear advice. So I think, Mrs. Forsyth, I think we will give the planning service 28 days notice to provide this additional report, as we've done with the previous ones, and then I think we give the applicants whatever it is, 14 days or something like that for their submission, and that's the way we're just going to have to go, and that's going to delay things somewhat, but I don't think we have any choice. So if we're comfortable with that, we can just draw the meeting to a close today. Everyone happy with where we are, understand it, and you'll do the necessary communications, Sarah, will you?
That's correct, convener. And just for clarity before the meeting closes, that decision in relation to the statements on NPF4 are relevant to items 3, 4 and 5
Yes,
on the agenda.
That's right. Yeah, so we've dealt with all three. Okay, at that point I will draw the meeting to a close and wish you a good rest of the day, and we'll doubtless meet again next week.